The alarm tore through my ship before I even opened my eyes. Red light flooded the cabin, and Iris, my ship's voice, spoke with an urgency I had never heard from her before. "Daniel, wake up. We have an emergency signal. It is not ours. It is not human." I sat up so fast my head spun. 10 years flying cargo routes through the outer colonies had taught me that emergency signals meant one of two things. Either someone needed help, or someone was about to bring trouble straight to my door. I did not have time to decide which this was. I just had to move. I am Daniel Hartley, captain of a small transport ship called the Wandering Hale. I run supplies between mining stations and research outposts scattered across 3 star systems. It is a lonely job, but it pays well. And out here, lonely is safer than most other things. "What signal?" I asked, pulling on my boots. "A distress call," Iris said. "Origin, a Velkari science vessel. Hull breach. Casualties confirmed. Power failing fast." My stomach dropped. The Velkari were not friends of humanity. Not enemies exactly, but close to it. 5 years ago, a border dispute near the Corin Belt turned violent, and both sides lost people. Since then, human ships and Velkari ships stayed far apart, trading nothing but suspicion whenever their paths crossed. "How far?" I asked. 40 minutes at full burn, Iris said. "But Daniel, there is something else. Their engines are unstable. If we do not reach them in time, the reactor will fail completely. There will be no survivors." I stood frozen for exactly 1 second. 1 second where old warnings from military briefings echoed in my head, telling me the Velkari were dangerous, unpredictable, not worth the risk. Then I thought about the voice buried inside that distress signal, a voice that did not care about politics or history, a voice that was simply afraid and alone in the dark. "Set a course," I said. "Full burn. Now." Iris did not question me. The engines roared to life beneath my feet, and the Wandering Hale shot forward like an arrow released from a bow. I felt the pressure crush against my chest as the ship accelerated harder than it was ever designed to. "Daniel," Iris said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Our arrival will be recorded by at least 2 monitoring stations. Command will ask questions." "Let them ask," I said. "I am not letting people die because of a fight that happened before some of them were even born." The next 30 minutes felt like hours. I ran every system check twice, made sure my suit was ready, and studied whatever data I could pull on Velkari ship design. Their hulls were built differently from ours, thicker in places, thinner in others, and their airlocks worked on a completely different pressure system. If I made one wrong move during the rescue, I could kill someone instead of saving them. "Iris, patch me into their emergency frequency," I said. A moment later, static filled the cabin, followed by a voice speaking in broken, panicked words. I did not understand the language, but I understood the fear in it perfectly. Iris translated a few seconds later, her voice calm against the chaos. "This is the science vessel Aduri. We are losing pressure. Reactor unstable. 12 crew remaining. Please, if anyone can hear this, please help us." I keyed the comm and spoke slowly, giving Iris time to translate each word. "This is Captain Daniel Hartley of the human ship Wandering Hale. I am coming to help you. Stay calm. Hold on." There was a long pause before a woman's voice answered, shaking but hopeful. "You are human," she said. "Why would you help us?" "Because you are dying, and I am close enough to stop it," I said. "That is the only reason I need." The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument could have. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, steadier now, like she had decided to trust me even though every instinct probably told her not to. "Please hurry," she said. "We do not have much time." I pushed the engines past their limit, ignoring every warning light flashing across my console. The ship shuddered violently, metal groaning under the strain, but I did not slow down. Every second mattered now. When the Aduri finally came into view, my breath caught in my throat. Half of the ship was torn open, venting clouds of frozen gas into space, sparkling like broken glass under the starlight. The other half glowed faintly with emergency lighting, flickering weaker with every passing second. "Iris, get me a lock on their airlock system," I said. "Working," she replied. "Daniel, their reactor will fail in 11 minutes. After that, nothing survives." 11 minutes. I had done difficult dockings before, but never one under this kind of pressure, and never with a ship that could explode before I even got the airlock open. I brought the Wandering Hale alongside the wounded vessel, matching its slow tumble as carefully as I could. Sparks flew past my viewport from torn cables drifting in the vacuum. My hands trembled slightly as I guided the docking clamp toward their emergency airlock, praying it would hold. "Contact," Iris said. "Seal is weak, but it should hold long enough." I grabbed my suit, sealed the helmet, and moved fast. The moment the airlock cycled open, I stepped through into chaos. Alarms blared in a language I did not understand. Red emergency lights pulsed weakly, and the air smelled burnt, thick with smoke that had nowhere to escape. I found the crew huddled together in a sealed compartment near the back of the ship. 12 figures pressed close, their skin a pale blue shade, eyes wide with exhaustion and fear. A tall man stepped forward first, positioning himself slightly in front of the others, his eyes locked on the human insignia on my shoulder. I recognized the posture immediately. He was protecting his crew, unsure if I was here to save them or finish what old conflicts had started. I raised both hands slowly, showing I carried no weapon. "I am here to get you out," I said, letting Iris translate through my suit speaker. He studied me for a long moment, his expression caught somewhere between suspicion and desperate hope. Finally, he nodded once. "Then help us," he said. "Please." There was no time for anything else. I organized them quickly, sending the injured through first, guiding the others behind them one by one. The ship groaned around us, metal twisting under stress, and every few seconds a tremor shook the floor beneath our boots. "Reactor failure in 6 minutes," Iris warned. I moved faster, pulling one woman by the arm when her legs gave out from exhaustion, half carrying her toward the airlock. Behind me, the tall man who had spoken first stayed close, helping an older woman whose leg was injured, refusing to leave until every one of his crew was moving toward safety. 4 minutes, Iris said. We reached the airlock with 6 people still left inside the ship. I pushed them through one at a time, counting each one, refusing to let myself think about what would happen if we ran out of time before everyone made it across. 2 minutes, Iris said, her voice tightening slightly, the closest thing to fear I had ever heard from her. The last person through was the tall man, practically shoving me ahead of him even though I insisted he go first. We tumbled into the wandering hail together, and I slammed the emergency release, sealing the connection just as the docking clamp disengaged. "Clear," Iris said. "Emergency burn recommended immediately." I did not need to be told twice. The engines roared, and my ship rocketed away from the dying vessel. Seconds later, a silent flash of light filled my rear cameras as the Aduri's reactor gave out, tearing the remains of the ship apart in the vacuum of space. For a long moment, nobody spoke. 12 strangers sat scattered across my cargo bay, breathing hard, some crying quietly, others simply staring at nothing, still processing how close they had come to dying only minutes earlier. The tall man approached me slowly once the shock began to fade. Up close, I could see the exhaustion carved into his face, along with something else, a kind of disbelief he seemed to be wrestling with. "My name is Kalen," he said, his translated voice steady now. "I am the lead researcher of that vessel. Or I was." "Daniel," I said. "Daniel Hartley." He looked around at his surviving crew, then back at me. "Why did you help us?" he asked again, the same question the woman had asked earlier over the radio. "Your people and mine, we do not exactly share friendship." I sat down across from him, suddenly aware of how tired I felt now that the danger had passed. "Because a distress call does not care about history," I said. "Someone was drowning, and I happened to be close enough to throw a rope. That is all it ever needed to be." And Ellen was quiet for a long time, studying me with an expression I could not quite read. Finally, he spoke again, his voice softer. "Where we come from, help is rarely given without a price," he said. "We are taught to expect nothing for free, especially not from strangers, and even less from people who have reason to dislike us." "Then maybe it is time that changed," I said. He almost smiled at that, though exhaustion kept it from fully forming. The following hours passed in a blur of activity. I contacted the nearest station to arrange proper medical care for the injured, filed emergency reports, and tried to ignore the growing list of messages piling up from my own command channels, each one demanding an explanation for why I had crossed into contested space to rescue a Velkari vessel without authorization. I did not answer them yet. There would be time for explanations later. Right now, 12 people needed food, rest, and medical attention, and that mattered more than any political headache waiting for me back home. "Iris, status on the injured?" I asked, moving through the cargo bay checking on everyone personally. "Stable for now," she replied. 2 require more advanced treatment than we can provide here, but they should survive the journey if we reach Haldor Station within the next few hours. "Set course," I said. As the ship settled into its new heading, I found myself sitting beside a young woman named Saren, one of the crew members who had spoken over the radio earlier. She held a small metal case tightly against her chest, her eyes red from crying, though her voice remained steady when she spoke. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I did not think anyone would come, especially not someone from your world." I glanced at the case she held so carefully. What is that? I asked, more out of gentle curiosity than anything else. Research data, she said. Years of work studying stellar formations near the Corin Belt. It felt strange to grab this instead of something personal, but I could not leave it behind. It represents everything my team built before tonight. I nodded, understanding completely. Sometimes the things we protect say more about us than anything we could put into words. You risked staying longer to save it, I said. She looked down at the case, then back at me. Some things are worth the risk, she said. I suppose you would understand that better than anyone, considering what you just did for all of us. I did not have an answer for that, so I simply nodded and let the silence settle comfortably between us. Hours later, as Haldor Station appeared as a bright point of light against the endless black of space, Kalen approached me one final time before the medical teams would take his crew for treatment. I do not know how to properly repay what you have done, he said. You do not need to repay anything, I said. Just remember it, that is enough. He studied me carefully, as if trying to memorize something important. I will remember, he said. And I believe others will hear of this as well. Word travels quickly among my people, especially stories that challenge everything we believed about your kind. As the station's medical teams boarded to receive the injured, command finally reached me directly, their voice tight with barely restrained anger. Captain Hartley, you are ordered to explain your unauthorized actions immediately, the officer said. You crossed into restricted space, endangered your vessel, and extended aid to a foreign faction without clearance. I took a slow breath before responding, keeping my voice calm despite the exhaustion pressing against my mind. I heard a distress call, I said. 12 people were about to die. I made a decision to save them. If that decision requires punishment, I will accept whatever consequences come, but I will not apologize for choosing to save lives when I had the chance to do so. The line remained silent for a long moment. We will discuss this further once you return, the officer finally said, though something in his tone had softened slightly, as if even he could not fully argue against the outcome. Understood, I said, ending the transmission. Iris's voice broke the silence that followed. Daniel, she said, sensor logs indicate 3 additional ships picked up fragments of the emergency broadcast during the rescue, 2 Velkari vessels, and 1 belonging to the Threll Alliance. I frowned, curious despite my exhaustion. What does that mean? I asked. It means word of what happened tonight will spread far beyond this system, she said. Stories like this rarely stay contained to just those involved. I leaned back against the cool metal wall of the cargo bay, watching as the last of the rescued crew disappeared through the station's airlock toward medical care. Whatever consequences waited for me back home, I found myself surprisingly at peace with the choice I had made. 3 weeks later, I received an unexpected message while running routine cargo between 2 mining outposts. The message carried a Velkari transmission code I did not recognize at first, until Iris identified it as originating from Kalen himself. I opened the message, curious what news he might have for me. Daniel, the message began, translated smoothly by Iris's steady voice. I wanted to inform you that Saren has published her research safely, and it has already reshaped our understanding of stellar formation near the Corin Belt. None of that would exist if you had not chosen to act that night. I smiled faintly, continuing to read. There is more, the message continued. News of your actions reached farther than either of us expected. Several Velkari border patrols have since altered their protocols regarding human vessels in neutral space, not because of any treaty or political agreement, but simply because enough people have heard what happened, and it has made them question assumptions they once considered absolute truth. I paused the message for a moment, letting that sink in before continuing. I do not know if this will change everything between our people, Kalen's message went on, but I believe it has changed something important. Stories travel faster than diplomats, and yours has traveled very far indeed. The message ended there, but Iris added something of her own a moment later, her voice carrying a note of quiet observation I rarely heard from her. Daniel, she said, incoming reports suggest a noticeable shift in Velkari communications regarding human vessels over the past 2 weeks. Nothing official, nothing written into any agreement, but the pattern is difficult to ignore. I sat quietly for a while, thinking about that night, about Kalen standing protectively in front of his crew, about Saren holding tightly to research she refused to abandon, about 12 strangers who owed their lives to a decision made in less than a single second. I had not saved them to change anything beyond that moment. I had simply heard someone in trouble and answered, the same way anyone should when they hear another person in danger, regardless of where they came from or what history existed between their people and mine. But sometimes, The simplest choices carry consequences far beyond what anyone could have predicted. Sometimes, answering one scream in the darkness is enough to shift something much larger, something that no treaty or negotiation could ever fully capture. I never expected recognition for what I did that night, and I never received any grand reward beyond Kalen's message and the quiet satisfaction of knowing 12 people were alive who otherwise would not have been. But sitting there in my cargo bay, watching the stars stretch endlessly beyond my viewport, I realized that was exactly the kind of reward that mattered most. Because somewhere out there, among countless stars and countless different peoples, someone else might be listening a little more closely now, waiting to hear if another cry for help would go answered or ignored. And if it ever comes again, I already know exactly what I will choose to do. I will answer, every single time.